Trucks and Tractor Power, it's the NMRO All-Star Nationals featuring the open paddle tire class. All the heavyweights of mud racing have gathered in northern Florida, including Ron Pence, Ricky Richardson, Byron Tinkey, and Jim Harbuck. These high horsepower vehicles challenge 200 feet of sandy mud. Coming up next on Trucks and Tractor Power. We're in Bayou, George, outside Panama City, Florida for mud bog racing. Hi, everybody. I'm Geary Lee alongside Rich Hooser. And you know, sometimes in motorsports, the classification is determined by engine size or suspension. But this weekend, it's tires.
That's right, Gary. There are two classes in mud racing. One class is the cut tire class. Now, these are DOT-approved tires, but can be cut to any configuration for the best traction possible. The class we'll be seeing today is the paddle tire class, where big rubber scoops are vulcanized on racing slicks to give the vehicle a lot more traction and a lot more speed.
Bayou, George, JC's Community Park, north of Panama City, the National Mud Racing Organization sanctioning this event this afternoon. This will be the All-Stars in the paddle tire competition. 200 feet of that sandy mud, and Rich Hooser, that sand can present a problem.
Yes, it can, especially at the finish. Now, the shutdown area is just sand. Now, there's no mud added, no water to it. So when they get out of the pit where it's nice and slick and get into that dry sand, traction is going to be a big factor down there.
Our first competitor from Greenfield, Ohio, this is Eddie Montgomery and Top Banana. A good ride for Eddie. His time 3.274.
And that time could hold up throughout the day the way this track is working out. Now, the starting line is real slick, but the track itself is drying out. As you see, a lot of rooster tails shooting up from them rear tires, and this means you're not getting a lot of traction. It's just kicking up a lot of mud.
And here is one of the top competitors in this paddle tire class. This is Tater with Ron Pence out of Fredericktown, Missouri, about 60 miles south of St. Louis. He has had a long tow to come down here to northern Florida. An excellent ride, a bit sideways in the shutoff area, but an excellent time, 3 seconds flat.
He got a great launch off the starting line. Now, he must have watched Top Banana, and he's seeing he didn't get the traction he needed for a good time. So he moved over to the right just a little bit and found a good spot that gave him that good launch. As you can see, the rooster tail shooting up here, and he just skimming across the top of the mud. The front tires aren't even getting dirty.
Rich, you make a valid point. These competitors watch the other drivers to see what mistakes they may make or what problems they encounter and learn from the competition. Stephan Price up next from Meridian, Mississippi in Great Grand Mudder. And he completes his run at 3.323. And again, he was bogged down, if you'll excuse the pun, right at the start.
Yeah, he seemed like he got a pretty good jump at the starting line, but as soon as he got down through the middle, it seemed like he just didn't have his gear ratio right because he wasn't getting the tire speed he needed to catch up to that 3.0 second time.
Well, I'm sure Stephan Price would like to have that run over again and perhaps align himself in a different position on the starting line. Coming up next from Cudahy, Wisconsin, this is Ted Brugger in Cut and Loose, a modified Jeep with a Chevrolet 355. This engine has a carburetor. It is not fuel injected. Down from the state of Wisconsin, Ted Brugger in the modified Jeep. And a very slow and a very rough ride for Ted.
I would say Ted's a little bit underpowered. 4.692, not a good time, Gary. Watch here at the beginning. It all starts off bad. He does not get traction, and he can't get his speed up, and that's why you see him bouncing real bad over the ruts that the other drivers have made because they usually just skim right across the top of it.
The lesson to be learned there is go with a big engine and fuel injection and forget about those carburetors because right here, Ted simply is not competitive.
Ted Brugger's taking a little bit of a bounce inside there. You can see him bouncing back and forth, and that is because of the suspension in these vehicles is so tight, and he is not skimming across the top.
And we go from Ted's carbureted Chevrolet to this all-aluminum injected nitrous oxide Rodex 530 in Berzerk. This is Tommy Killingsworth out of Summit, Mississippi. Now watch him skim across the mud. And he has so much horsepower, he gets himself in trouble.
And Gary, he does go out of bounds and he will be disqualified. Now watch what happens here at the line. He gets all crooked, and he tries to compensate by steering into it a little bit, but he just gets out of control. And watch right here. He's going off the sideline. He actually wipes out the timing lights. That is the lights they use to time these races, so we won't have a time on him.
Well, Berzerk went berserk, and we have some downtime right now as they repair the timing lights. We can tell you Ron Pence, with that 3-second run, continues to lead in Tater. Then it's Eddie Montgomery and Stephan Price. Stephan driving the Great Grand Mutter. And coming up, we'll be watching the likes of Bad Habit and Bad Agent, among others, as the paddle tire class continues.
In 1990, a cricket tradition began. Skies is...
We are back in Bayou, George, JC's Community Park, just north of Panama City, and these fans really love their mud racing here in the panhandle of Florida. The paddle tire competition continues with Rick Geary out of Anderson, South Carolina. He is riding high in the cockpit of Mud Shuttle 2. This is a Chevrolet power plant, 355 cubic inches. Not a bad ride, but not as quick as he would like to be at 3.222.
He didn't get a real good launch. It started off good, but then all of a sudden right there, he lost power. It seemed like he got back into throttle again, and that cost him a lot of time.
Well, you can certainly see the variation of vehicles here. These drivers each thinking they have the best way to go fast. This is an open cockpit roadster. 3.222 for Rick Geary. A good crowd on hand here in northern Florida. It's a beautiful day. Somewhat dry, some drought conditions, and that's taking away some of the moisture from this mud pit as we take a look at Tom Marsh in the Intruder. Tom from Vandalia, Ohio, up near Dayton. And a good ride for Tom Marsh, 3.292.
Well, it sure looked like it was faster than that, though, didn't it, Gary? He's way off to the right-hand side. He's getting good traction. He's carrying his front end, and it looks like a picture-perfect run, but just not good enough.
Well, again, he starts from the far right of that lane, and you're right, it did look like it was a faster run than it turned out to be. And now we take a look at Bad Agent. Bad Agent driven by Joe Kinser. This is a modified Corvette.
Gary, I might mention here, these people all really like Joe Kinser. He goes by JoJo, and he is one of the craziest drivers out in the circuit.
And you can hear the fans in the background. A good ride at 3.018.
That puts him into second place. He got a great launch. He's carrying that left front tire a little bit, still getting some traction from his right front tire, but he just skims across the top. Look at the right there. It's a beautiful shot of that Corvette. He does a great job of keeping the vehicle under control the whole way through the pit.
One of the most expensive vehicles here, Bad Agent. They say that thing may be valued at upwards of $100,000. And now we take a look at Bad Habit. This is Byron Tinkey coming up next. Look at this modified out of Tiffin, Iowa. A Chevy, 427 cubic inches. Bad Habit. A good run, but he gets sideways. Look out, he's in trouble in the shutoff area. He caught that sand, it tucked a tire and went on over.
Gary, like I mentioned earlier, that shutdown area is nothing but sand. You can get sideways in there, there's not a lot you can do. Okay, he's climbing out of the vehicle. He seems to be all right, but now he tried to pull out of it down there by giving it a little more gas, but it just didn't work. I'm going to try to get over to him and see how he's doing.
We have some excellent safety facilities here in the Bayou George JC's Community Park. The ambulance is down there. You can see Byron now appearing to be somewhat dazed, seated down there in the sand as the paramedics have arrived to talk to him. And let's see now if we cannot eavesdrop on this conversation.
You need to go shut the fuel off.
Why don't you think about it for a minute? You sure you're not hurting?
Get that hose down there.
You sure?
No worse than I was before I got in.
Well, as you can hear, he still has his sense of humor. The full roll cage protected him, but Byron will have what we call a good case of racing rheumatism tomorrow as we take a look again. It's a clean pass, but he gets to the shutoff area, applies the brake. The car pitches to the right, tucks that right rear paddle tire, and goes on over. as we take another look coming straight at you. See the rooster tail of mud and sand. There he gets sideways, and he does a 1.5 landing upside down on the roll cage, and I think Rich is caught up with our driver.
Okay, Byron, it looked like you had a little problems with the starting line getting the front end locked in. Did it have anything to do with your rollover down here?
I don't know if it had anything to do with it or not. It's just a freak thing.
Because it looked like you just had two-wheel drive, just rear end was pulling coming down there.
It felt like coming out of the hole, but it looked like it hooked back in after I took off, so I don't know if something wasn't right or everything was locked in. It should have worked. I don't know.
Yeah, the little problems down here in the sand has caused a lot of problems.
You don't want to get a little sideways. You're gone down here.
Yeah, well, get your vehicle back in shape.
Yeah, I hope.
Yeah, okay.
All right, thanks.
The roll cage did its job. Byron Tinkey is not injured. He'll want to take inventory, though, and perhaps some other damage to bad habits. So as we clear the racetrack, we'll take a look once again at that run. A good, clean run through the trap, but in the shutdown area, he gets sideways, tucks that right rear paddle wheel, and goes on over. So, as he takes a walk back to the ambulance to clear the cobwebs out of his head, we can tell you Ron Pence continues to lead. Let's check in now with our leader, and here is Rich.
Okay, Ryan, you're sitting here watching these last couple runs. You're in the lead right now at 3.0. How do you think it's going to hold up?
Well, I don't know. I'm hoping, but I don't know if it will or not.
Do you think the track's holding together, or do you think it's falling apart?
Seems like it's been about the same all day, or the way it looks to me.
So you got a pretty good run, and you think it's going to win it?
Well, I hope so.
Okay, well, we'll be hoping with you.
Okay, thank you.
And the next driver to take a shot at Ron Pence is Ronnie Dunsavage, Lebanon, Texas, driving the Weekend Warrior. And he does not even come close. His run of 4.016.
Gary, he didn't get the traction he needed at the starting line. He was spinning too much and didn't get his momentum up. And then he was just losing time throughout the whole course of the track because he couldn't get his speed up.
We look at it again, the spray of the mud and the sand, but again, a slow run at just over 4 seconds for Ronnie Dunsavage out of the state of Texas. Now a good look at Jody Kelly in the Pepsi Challenger. Another modified Jeep setting up high with that roll cage around him. He's out of Waxhaw, North Carolina, 488 cubic inches in that Chevrolet power plant. Well, he carried the front end a long way, got off to the right. His time, 3.350.
Gary did a great job of driving here. He got good traction, and he's carrying his front end a little high. He could have done some adjustments at a 4-link suspension, but he did a good job keeping it under control.
He got the good hole shot, got up on top of the mud, and pulls off to the right as we take a look at the Pepsi Challenger, but Rich has caught up with JoJo Kinser.
Okay, Joe, your car's running real good. You're holding second place. You think you're going to take second today?
I hope I do. I hope that time holds out.
Now, a lot of these guys are talking about the track now. They think it's going away, and then we talked to Ryan, who's leading right now at 3.0. He thinks it's been the same. Do you think the track has changed throughout the course of the race?
I think it's dried out more today than it was yesterday, and it's kind of the sand, the wet sand, kind of sticks to the car more and slows the tires down a little bit.
Well, how's the takeoff?
Starting line's good, but it bogs you down some after you get going.
Okay, thanks.
I'm sure there was no pun intended there, JoJo. Ron Pence continues to lead in Tater with a clocking of 3 seconds flat. Then it's JoJo Kinser, the Corvette bad agent, at 3.018, and Rick Geary in the Mud Shuttle 2 at 3.222. In fourth is Eddie Montgomery, the top banana, 3.274. Tom Marsh in the Intruder at 3.292. And Stephan Price, the great grandmother, at 3.323. A look once again at the harrowing rollover by Byron Tinkey, but despite the damage to the race car, Byron was uninjured. Well, they start him young here in northern Florida with the youngster and his monster truck. As we'll take a look once again at the run of Tater with Ron Pence. He's been the quick one thus far at 3 seconds flat. So Ron Pence has to watch some other competitors, and the next to take a shot will be Jim Harbuck in Flirtin with Disaster. Out of the state of Oklahoma, he and his wife Paula share this truck. Flirtin with Disaster with the Rodec 453 cubic inch engine. A good ride for Jim, an excellent ride at 3.026.
He did a good job, Gary. He kept it nice and straight. Look how far off to the right-hand side he lined that vehicle up. He's just going right down the sideline, and he did an excellent job keeping it in bounds.
In this shot here, Rich, we can see how close Jim Harbuck is to that right boundary. He keeps it over there, keeps it nice and straight, and has a good ride. And next up is Ron Smith out of Schoolcraft, Michigan, driving Gold Fever. Chevrolet power, 490 cubic inches, and look how high he sits in the cockpit. The roll cage is actually above the top of the cab. Gold Fever, a Wolverine from Michigan. And he clips the light at 3.191.
It was a good run, Gary. He got off the line nicely, but halfway through the track, you'll see some smoke coming out the left side of his engine. I think he had a little problem with it, and that cost him the time.
Once again, we take a look at the rooster tail of sand and mud, and you can see how this pit is really drying out. This parched land here in northern Florida is soaking up all the moisture. And right now, Jim Harbuck continues to stand in third position. He's standing by with Rich Hooser.
Okay, Jim, you're in third place right now, but there's about 3 or 4 left to go. You think you're going to be able to hold on to that 3.026?
Well, I might be able to because the track's getting worse. The further the day's gone, well, the worse it gets. And there's 1 or 2 more real fast cars there if they get a good line. You know, they're good launch. Well,
yeah, it seems to have been falling apart a little bit. They're getting actually slower instead of faster today.
that's right. The line's not hooking as hard today as it did yesterday. You're just not getting any traction on the starting line.
So Jim Harbuck stands in third position. JoJo Kinser is second, and your leader at this point with a run of 3 seconds flat is Ron Pence. They stand by and watch this gentleman, Keith Metcalf, out of LaPlace, Louisiana, in the modified Jeep called the Predator. It is powered by a 355 cubic inch Chevrolet, and by the luck or the unluck of the draw, Keith drives late in the competition and does not have a very good mud pit to challenge this afternoon. And not a very good ride at 3.834.
Gary, he never did get hooked up from the very beginning. He's not getting his traction. Plus, every vehicle that runs down here is putting in new ruts. So he had to negotiate those ruts, let alone not get the traction.
Well, here's a look coming straight at you again, bouncing through the ruts. Does not have a good hole shot and turns that time of 3.8 seconds. Our final competitor, a local hero from nearby Southport, Florida in Showdown. This is Ricky Richardson. This is an alcohol-injected nitrous oxide 605 cubic inch Chevrolet in the modified Jeep body. And despite all that horsepower, Ricky could not get a good hole shot, 3.636.
Gary, he had a nice straight run. He didn't get the traction he needed, and he didn't get the speed he needed. Now, a lot of these guys in these vehicles can change the gear ratios to get more top-end speed, which I think he should have put a bigger, taller gear in that vehicle.
So the last shot at Ron Pence. Ron Pence hangs on, though, to win it with his clocking of 3 seconds, driving Tater. JoJo Kinser in the black Corvette Bad Agent second at 3.018. And Jim Harbuck, flirting with disaster, comes home third at 3.026. And fourth is Ron Smith in Gold Fever. Rick Geary is fifth in Mud Shuttle 2. And Eddie Montgomery is sixth in Top Banana. So your winner, Ron Pence, is standing by with Rich Hooser.
All right, Ryan, started off early in the class. Now, were you worried that anybody was going to beat that 3.0 second you won today's championship with?
Well, I thought for sure it would get beat.
Because you think the track will stay the same, though, like you said earlier, so everybody should have, compared to the way they usually run, should have probably beat you, right?
Well, they should have, but they didn't, did they?
Well, congratulations. How many championships have you won lately?
Oh, I don't know. Don't keep track of them that close, I guess.
Okay, well, good luck to you.
All right, thank you.
And our congratulations to Ron Pence, the victory here in Panama City. We've had a great time this weekend. For Rich Hooser, I'm Gary Lee. See you next week on Trucks and Tractor Power.